bail reform mean for Houston? Good evening, I'm Del Howlin. Welcome to Red, White and Blue. Last Friday, federal judge Lee H. Rosenthal ruled Harris County's bail system unconstitutional. While in jail for low-level crimes, 3 people sued the county claiming that they were held for, quote, being poor as they could not afford to pay their bail. Rosenthal's ruling safeguards that no person in jail for a low-level offence and unable to pay their bail will be stuck in jail. Tonight, to help us better understand the impact of this ruling and other issues at the County Commissioner's Court, we are pleased to welcome Harris County Precinct 1 Commissioner Rodney Ellis, and leading our discussion are hosts David Jones and Gary Polland.
And let's let Commissioner Ellis know how this all started with Judge Rosenthal. Judge Rosenthal was not a judge. It was the end of Bush 41's term. And he brought her to me because he knew that I knew Joe Biden. And he said, we need to push this one through. I want you to meet her and see if you can help get her through Biden. I met her. I went full board, put this woman on the bench. And now you get to tell us whether we made the right decision.
You made a great decision. She's a brilliant jurist. She's certainly no flaming liberal, appointed by President Bush, as you said, very thoughtful. I think that this opinion really will be the hallmark that will have an impact on the criminal justice system in a very positive way all around the country.
Now, one of the things interesting, if this is implemented, and we have a bail reform bill we'll talk about that's floating around the legislature that may be coming forward, if we actually get bail reform in this county, it's fair to say that the county government will save money because the incarceration costs are going to go down considerably.
It'll save a tremendous amount of money, and we'll have more resources to put into dealing with real criminals, really people who are violent and not these penny ante misdemeanors.
Look at property taxes for the hard-pressed taxpayers.
Taxes, look, hey, you know, here's a big part of it, though. It's mental health. I mean, right now in every urban county in the country, the biggest, the largest mental institution is the jail. Not just in Harris County, and Cook County, and Travis County, and LA County, and that's a real problem.
One of the essential things that I heard came out of the ruling was that on May 15th, or by May 15th, any misdemeanant can be given the opportunity to sign an affidavit saying, I cannot afford that bail, after which, if they cannot, they must be released. Is that your understanding? It is.
It's something we should have done a long time ago. They'll go through an assessment on May the 15th, assuming that this stands up. Something we should have been doing anyway. Here's the concept. If one of the 3 of us are arrested for a misdemeanor and they post our bail at $10,000, which means you have to give $1,000 in cash, but someone who is homeless, they're arrested, same profile, same exact profile, everything is with them the way it is with us, and they give them a $1,000 bond, they need $100. And you know they don't have $100. Well, what you're doing there is arresting someone and keeping them in jail because they cannot afford to pay.
But the county argued they want 3 meals a day. I heard that. The county argued there are people who actually prefer being in jail because it's safe.
I was in court, and there are people in defense of Mr. Monastery.
Monastery, right.
There are people who have mental health issues who would prefer to be in your house, or preferably the White House, instead of being in jail. And that might be 1 or 2 people with mental health issues, but to say, look, I was there and my blood pressure was going up. And to be honest with you, I was wondering whether or not it was race on my part coming out. But I was thinking that argument really was essentially the argument some people would give for slavery. And then when the judge said it, you know, I could feel the blood pressure going down. And then later on, poor fellow, nice guy, I've been bike riding with him before.
Yeah.
Then he made the comment, well, some people are in jail because they feel remorse. They know they did the wrong thing. And I'm trying to think, when I did something wrong, did I ever tell my daddy, yes, I took some pennies out of the cookie jar. Beat me
to jail.
You know, get me. But look, therein lies the issue. When you open up a checkbook and you're spending money on good lawyers who probably have no more experience in this space than the average human being would have, but they're getting paid for it.
Right. Here's what I learned from reading the opinion. I learned that in Washington, D.C., this has been disposed of to this in the same way that Judge Rosenthal has disposed of it, as has been the case in New Mexico, New Jersey, New Orleans, Maryland, and even the great state of Alabama. So I'm asking you this. Why is it that there are 15 county criminal court judges who think they're smarter than all of these other federal judges who have made these rulings?
In Alabama, it was a court decree. And I'm told that the 40 largest cities in Alabama, deep in the heart of Dixie, decided to comply with a similar decision. But look, here's an easy place to look. We don't have this system, the bail system, on the federal level right here in Harris County and throughout the state. I'm told, I don't know if it's true, you ought to check and see. I saw something on the internet that said only 2 countries in the world still use this traditional bail system. Would be the United States and would be the Philippines. This decision does not do away with money bail. That's one of the things that this decision does not do. It simply says that you have to make sure you guarantee and protect someone's due process requirements. They should be given a lawyer if you're going to make that decision. And there should be an inquiry into someone's financial
status. And that's called a risk assessment, and I understand that there is a risk assessment that is already available for them to use, although they've been given until July 1st to implement it.
Well, we have a risk assessment now. It's kind of old. It's been around a long time.
Don't you?
And they don't follow it.
You're working with a couple of the foundations that funded the county to
Arnold
come up with a
Foundation.
risk assessment tool that's modern, that will be able to assess. Because, to be fair, one of the concerns on the flip side is you don't want to release people on a low bond or no bond if they're a risk to the public safety. You don't want to do that.
Well, that's true. And clearly we're talking about misdemeanors. If someone is not only a risk to the public, if they are a risk to themselves, they should be detained. But here's what happens. If the 2 of us are arrested and I have money and you don't, and they let me go because I have money, but they keep you, and we're both just as much of a risk, that's where you violate the Equal Protection Clause.
That makes sense.
And if the Founding Fathers didn't mean it, they shouldn't have put it in the Constitution. And we still have separate and unequal schools, white and black bathrooms and everything else. It's the Equal Protection Clause. That's the argument.
Oh, you made the wrong. Don't say bathrooms to Gary because that'll distract him.
Don't get into
bathrooms.
Don't focus
Let's talk about
I want to focus on the bail reform bill.
You mentioned mental health, and then a lot of the people we have locked up are mentally ill, and that points to I take it something that I think you worked on when you were in the legislature. We have so few long-term mental health beds in the state, let alone the county. We don't have any. We have HCPC, which is a wonderful short-term facility. There's legislature percolating in Austin that may create a permanent and long-term mental health facility next to HCPC in Houston, so we have a place to put these poor folks, because it is a huge problem.
It's a big problem. We got to spend money. Here's an interesting statistic. In 2016-17 fiscal year for Harris County, we increased the budget for the county jail by 11%. From the previous year of $275,000. Taxpayers will spend about $15 million more on the county jail than on all county services and construction programs combined. If we spend less money incarcerating people for minor offenses,
we'll have more money to spend on
where
other
the statistics show they are going to show up. Somebody's not a flight risk because some veteran maybe cussed out the wrong person at the wrong time and they called them in, or because they trespassed. They had to use the restroom.
Right.
Someone's homeless.
There you go again.
And they walk inside and they trespass in the wrong place and they get arrested. But there are times when at our age, we have to use the restroom. And if we have money and we trespass and we are arrested, you know what? We pay, we get out.
Right.
So really, it's all a matter of priorities. Do you want to continue to spend money on this?
I want to find out where the leadership is in the county on this issue. All right, you've got 4 commissioners other than yourself. As I read in the paper, you're the only one that's been opposed to hiring people to oppose this lawsuit and at the money that they're billing the county. Is there any flexibility that you see among the other commissioners in terms of getting this over with Judge Rosenthal?
I hope so. Clearly in this new job, I'm not going to violate the open meetings law and try to line up votes. But, I read the briefs when they were filed. I was aware that this issue was coming around the country. It was a long time in coming here. One reason why I think the plaintiffs picked Harris County is because so much data was here. It was easy to pull the statistics because a lot of people were looking at the problem on the right and on the left, might I add. And the data was here. You could pull it easily. They needed to grab a major urban county to really make an example out of. And we were just right for the pick. One reason why we passed the Fair Defense Act 16 years ago, in part, was over Harris County. Wasn't anywhere else.
And that was a beautiful thing. And the sad thing about all of this, Mr. Ellis, is that for at least 30 years, there have been poor people who have criminal histories because we have never changed that bail schedule. And we have made sure that they had lawyers who would grease the wheels for plea bargains that would give them criminal convictions for 30 years. Can you imagine the damage that has been done?
It's a good point. And I hope when this issue is resolved, it does not stop here. That goes to the broader issue of how lawyers are picked for people in these criminal cases. You know what happens.
Well, you know what?
The judges pick somebody who wrote a campaign contribution.
Yeah, Commissioner, you can spend the day with me when I represent indigents, and you'll see what a hard-working private lawyer does for people. But I'm appointed.
Yeah.
You remember the
What's
Chronicle spent the day with me.
You got me. So, and I'm not saying that you would not. Clearly, you could have conflicts. You'd have to have private lawyers. But here's the issue. It violates, by the way, the ABA principles. It ought to violate their rules. And if one or three of us does not have a license to practice law and we practice, that violates the rules. But the principles say it's an inherent conflict of interest to have the judge picking the lawyer to represent someone who's accused.
The Fair Defense Act has the wheel and the names come up.
Remember I passed that.
I remember.
The wheel is there because that's all I could get. First version of that bill, Governor Bush vetoed it.
Yeah.
And when it became an issue in the campaign trail.
The providence of the judiciary.
Speaking of the ABA,
it's interesting, but I'll tell you, you can come spend the day with me. I'm happy to have you with you.
But so what I'm saying is,
I'll even buy you lunch.
It's the independence issue. You got me?
Well, independence is an attitude. The lawyer, lawyers who are hired to represent clients may not be independent because they're beholden to judges.
But you increase your likelihood. Why wouldn't we let the judge pick the prosecutor then? Because that prosecutor ought to be independent.
The people pick the prosecutor.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned the ABA, and I just read the ABA's rule on this. It says no pretrial detention from an inflexible bail schedule should be allowed to determine, and ability to return is the only issue that should be before the court.
And also public safety.
Well, and inability to pay is not a high priority.
Well, what they want to make sure of is that you don't end up with essentially a debtor's prison. So people who cannot afford to pay are the only ones who are stuck in the system.
So who's for a debtor prison? Raise your hand. Nobody here. Okay.
Well, nobody admits it. You know what's interesting? When I talk to a number of people, everybody says that, even my colleagues on the court, but that's what we have.
Well, you got to tell it like it is. I want to, David.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Actually, if I could move on from here, there's a couple things I want to talk to the commissioner about today. And one is really important: the deteriorating infrastructure of our county buildings. We have elevators out, Commissioner, in every single building. Yeah, the new civil courthouse, it's not even that old. There's like 7 elevators not working because the elevator company went out of business. And I don't know why we hired them, but that's another issue. Obviously, you're new to the court. Is there anything we can do to ensure that we buy elevators from companies that are going to stay in business?
You should see the lines at the criminal courthouse whenever those elevators break down. They're
it's
doubled around
I heard
building.
there was something going on where the judges, they had something rigged up because the elevators are not working about 2 weeks ago when I was over there to speak at someone. But clearly, it's an issue of money. You get what you pay for.
So
you got to raise the issue.
Yeah, and it's interesting, I guess, and maybe I'm sure we do low bid contracts. But if we looked into the idea with a company be in business in 5 years, we'll be able to get spare parts. They'll end up being more expensive than going with a higher bidder.
First of all, you got to pay for it. And then there are liability issues. Obviously, the government, there's a limit to what you can get when you sue the government. But hey, it's one of those ongoing issues. I'd say raise the issues. Look, I'm new to county government.
There may be ways
I'm
to
willing
be
to stand up. Look, we got issues with complying with the American Disabilities Act. I saw that story, front page article in the paper not too long ago. That challenge is there, but you got to pay for it.
How about public housing? You have problems with public housing now that the government has cut back on whatever their contributions were to public housing.
One of the issues that I'm thinking is that as opposed to always waiting for money from heaven, the federal government, on the local level, one of the last things I had the privilege of working on as a council member was to use local money for affordable housing. I mean, you're going to do a bond package, and that way you don't have a lot of the restrictions that on my side.
It gets paid back.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so you can.
Some of it can. I mean, they used about $20 million as I was leaving the council. Kathy Whitmire put it on the ballot. Bob Lanier was mayor. And each mayor has put in $20 million. I think the last mayor, previous mayor, cut it back a little to about $18 million. And that money was used in part to do some of the affordable housing downtown, which was not necessarily low income, but I know they use it on low income practices now. And the county ought to do that.
I would bet that you couldn't say to us that public housing that was built so that it would integrate neighborhoods.
No,
it is my understanding that it was it continued the segregation of neighborhoods that we have in Houston,
Well, all
Texas.
around the country. I mean, that's what we did. I
Well,
mean,
now
you
it's
could even-
changing. We have integration because
Yeah.
now close in
That has
people want to
changed.
live.
Yeah. In the old days, that's what it was about. In fact, for a long time, even when we passed fair housing laws, you know, the biggest transfer of wealth in this country was because we had Fannie Mae and Ginnie Mae. But back then, blacks could only live in the neighborhoods that blacks could live in, Hispanics only.
Well,
Same way
certainly
with
not the-
college loans.
not
We've
the
gotten
case.
beyond that.
Yeah, we have.
But the real issue is, just as the city
Thank
is willing
goodness.
to use some of its money for affordable housing, I'm going to encourage my colleagues to look at
Take some of the money
pilot
you're saving in
program.
the jail you could
Yeah.
use for that. Let me ask you this. My understanding is before you got on the commissioner's court that before everybody had to agree before anything went forward. And since you've come on, I heard that rule is now changed
Well,
and
no,
you can
I think
disagree.
you're talking about the legislative
Right.
rule.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of interesting to me. I may bring that up. I have not decided because you can't go collect votes after that Montgomery County ruling. That is
Right.
clearer than it was before. Although it has been overturned, who knows what's going to happen. So, if we were going to support or oppose the bathroom bill,
Okay.
since you mentioned that
Right.
earlier. You could only take a position for Harris County if all 5 commissioners
Agreed.
agree. One of my colleagues decided to change that. Now, I think it was a mistake because there are probably some issues they'd like to not take a position on.
Yeah, 'cause you're an
And they could blame it on old Rodney or blame it on somebody else.
Right.
But if you're going to change it to 3, you know, I think I can get to 3 quicker than 5. I think that was a mistake.
I think
but-
Gary's going to. I
think
think Gary's going to like this question because he's tried to defeat Vince Ryan as county attorney 2 or 3 times. But my question is, I've received information that says that he has unlimited authority whenever there's a need for outside counsel, such as the case where he's got judges who are opposed to the plaintiffs in the lawsuit that was just settled by Judge Rosenthal, to not only pick those lawyers, but decide how much they can charge. And the Chronicle editorialized today says, why isn't Vince Ryan settling this case?
There's a separate statute for Harris County, maybe some other county, that gives the county attorney's office here even more power than other county attorneys in the 250 some odd counties in Texas. First of all, the county attorney makes the decision on whether or not you have outside counsel. And then the county attorney's office makes the decision on who they hire, if anyone. So first of all, I would have taken a position the county attorney should have tried to do it in-house. He's got a great team of lawyers. And I was told initially they thought that it was a case that could be settled. Even before I got in office, I certainly was on the periphery of some of those talks. And since I've been in, at least on one occasion, I was asked to talk to the lawyers for the plaintiffs. Obviously, I know them from my role as chair of the Board of Innocence Project. I've dealt in that arena quite a bit. I think it was a mistake to hire outside counsel. I think it's ridiculous to spend over $2 million. I think that they're going to run the risk if this is appealed all the way
they're gonna spend
through
a
the
whole lot
process.
of money.
They'll spend more on this than so far has been appropriated to do the Astrodome.
Well, here's some
Really?
unfortunate.
Oh my goodness.
so far.
Here's
has
some
been
unfortunate news for you. You probably have heard of Sandy Thompson Guerra, who's
Yes,
a
very
law
capable
law professor
attorney
here at U
at
of
U of
H.
H.
She says if they appeal this, that Rosenthal will lose, and it'll be over. That the Fifth Circuit will knock this down in a heartbeat.
Well, I don't know. She is the chief judge here. She's very well respected. It is a very well thought out opinion. And despite all of the speculation on what the opinion does do, I think it's a good idea to walk through it and see the things that it does not do.
Or how about wait
It
and
does
see
not
what-
end Moneyville.
Or see what it does
Yeah.
when it goes into operation.
I put my money on Judge Rosenthal most days of the week, even when I disagree with her.
One of the things that's been interesting and obviously been in the news is the city's pension issues, and the pension program for the city are essentially a train wreck, to be fair to say, especially municipal employees. And it looks like something's getting passed in Austin, and we'll see what happens. But you joined a system in the county where it's like one of the best systems around. So you were on the city council, you're in the legislature, you're now a commissioner. What did the county do right, and what has the city done wrong?
Well, I guess a more appropriate question would be, what did the state do wrong? When I was on city council, those decisions were made on the state level.
Right.
And there was a time in this country when people would encourage you to move away from local people because they thought the state was more immune from political influence. That has not been the case. Look, all of us were there in the legislature, all of the actors who are involved now. Mayor Turner was in the House. I was in the Senate when his last iteration passed. I think it's 2001.
Right.
And I remember that because I chaired the Finance Committee. And my chief of staff of the Finance Committee came to me and said, I think there are problems with this bill. And I remember calling the mayor at that time and asking. I was told to call the city attorney and the budget director, and I did. And everything is fine. But we all bear some responsibility there. I wouldn't say that that bill is out of the woods, so to speak, yet. I know that there was some talk about trying to add the Dallas issues, the problems with them, to the Houston bill. I hope that does not happen. If they are coupled, then I hope Fort Worth and all these other places. But to answer your question, there was a move many years ago to take that power away from cities and move it to the state. That did not happen in terms of county government.
Okay, the state is also trying to get involved in bail reform. And a bill has just passed the Senate 21-10. It moves to the House, where the bonding industry is claiming we are going to kill this bill. Now, let's assume they're wrong and a bill passes and it becomes law. I'm not a constitutional lawyer good enough to say what happens when you've got a state law that says this is the way we want bail to operate, and we got Judge Rosenthal saying somewhere else.
Well, first of all, I haven't looked at that bill. I know it is not the version that Senator Whitmire initially filed. That was a version that I thought was very good.
He's still pushing the bill, though.
Yeah, through the process, and you never know what happens until the end. So first of all, I would hope that there's nothing in it that conflicts with what this ruling does. But either way, I doubt that that bill would have immediate effect. I'm sure experts like Sandra Garrett Thompson are going to be looking at it. So you want to make sure it does no harm. The bail bonding industry, they're all over the place. They're powerful. They're in every state. They're there on the federal level. I mean, in this litigation, you know, among the 14 or 15 lawyers in the room, about 2 or 3 of them were out of Washington, D.C., representing the bail bonding industry.
Have they testified to Commissioner's Court?
No, they have not. Even around Austin, they did testify publicly, but over the years, they're always there, lurking in the shadows.
You know what you can tell them? We don't owe you a living, sir.
Yeah, but you got to look at it. Usually with most problems that are intractable, I have found in my 30-some-odd years in public office, follow the money. You know, why have we incarcerated so many people in such a way that's so ridiculous? Because people make money off of the towels, the sheets, the bars, the food. You know what I mean? The soap, the toothpaste. It's ridiculous.
So, and I guess you can break confidence, but do you believe that the officials in the county are now aware that if the reforms that are being talked about with Judge Rosenthal's reforms, the Arnold Foundation's ideas, if they're implemented, it will save tremendous money in incarceration costs, some of which will have to be diverted for the whole criminal justice system to handle this new way of doing things, but it'll probably leave extra money for the commissioners to spend on things they want.
I think they know that, but you know, look, we have a long way to go. And even with this ruling, there's still broader issues. There are things that the county had in place that it ought to continue regardless of what happened in this ruling. But there's a tendency, I think, over years for people to become oblivious to problems like this. Because we're not talking about a population of people that we normally sit down and have dinner with. We're talking about people who catch the early bus to go to work. I mean, they clean our homes. They mow our yards. I mean, they fix the streets. They repair the elevators. But they're not necessarily the people who have a voice in everyday politics. And that's a real tragedy, which in some ways is why, you know, I've gone from, I think, being a fairly conventional member of the legislature to really having to speak out on this. Look, I'm aware of the fact I'm 63. And at my age, I don't have 30 years to sit here. You got me? I'm at the end of the road. And I want to do as much as I can, as quick as I can, and do it in such a way that I think it'll leave a legacy in place for future generations of people in Harris County to build on.
Speaking of legacies, what other things are you interested in doing on Commissioner's Court?
I'm very interested in improving the health and quality of life. You know, as great as our parks are in our county and in our city, I want to really see this bayou beautification project, which was a concept developed 100 years ago, come to reality. Linear parks that go through every neighborhood. You know, sometimes I know you all rip me when I'm out bike riding, particularly in spandex, but you know, the one place where it's amazing and you see the diversity in this city, you see how segregated neighborhoods in an unzoned environment, really, it's so interesting. I mean, it's like I ride through little Nigeria, little Italy, little Vietnam, you know, little South Africa. It's just really amazing. And you can only see it if you're running, and we're too old for that, if you're on a bicycle going through these bayous. So I'm going to do as much as I can to expand bike share. You know, I know the #1 cause of death in Harris County now is what we ate for lunch or what we'll eat for dinner or breakfast. And I want to do as much as I can to make sure that the longest walk people take is not to the altar or to a diabetes machine. We got to get more people out and get them
That'll
active.
save money on health care,
Yeah.
too.
Hey,
if we
my
get
dream
people
one of these
involved.
days is you can go out and swim in one of these bayous.
I thought your dream one day is to be co-host of this show with David.
I'm
and
looking
I.
forward to that.
Well, if you wear the spandex, I guarantee you'll be able to be on
I'll
the
be
show.
the only host.
Well, Commissioner
You'll be the-
Ellis,
Thank you.
Commissioner Ellis, it's been a great pleasure having you on the show.
It's
And
an
we'll
honor.
have you back.
Good. Thank you. David, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Gary and David and Commissioner Ellis. Do you have any ideas for future shows? We'd love to hear them. You can submit your comments on Facebook and on Twitter at RWE_8. Oh, and for more political analysis, download our podcast, Party Politics, with hosts Jay Iyer and Brandon Roddinghouse at houstonpublicmedia.org/party or anywhere podcasts are available. We'll see you again next week. Have a great evening.